Hey everyone, it's TK Friday. This is Masking Success, Part 2. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Last week's TK Friday tutorial was setting yourself up for masking success. That was Part 1. We're just going to carry that theme further and just get deeper into masking. We're going to be using the masking calculator some more. I'm going to be introducing some different ideas and concepts today. And by the way, not only is it TK Friday, my favorite day of the week, but this is TK Black Friday. You're going to save 25% off everything over on Tony Kuiper's website. Just click on my affiliate link in the description below this video and it'll take you to those Black Friday specials. There you'll find the TK8 multi-mask plugin for Photoshop along with a bunch of really great training videos. You'll save 25% off of anything in that site. And just use my promo code DK25. When you use that promo code, I'll get credit for those sales. I'll make a small commission and it helps me to keep these tutorials coming your way. So if you'll do that, I appreciate that if you purchase anything. But sit back and relax. You're going to learn a lot of new cool stuff today. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I did provide this image for you. You can download it. You'll find it in the description below. Just click on the download link and you can follow along with me. I'm not a big fan of the crop of this image, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of a crop. So I'm just going to grab my cropping tool and I'm just going to pull down, maybe something like that. I think that'll look better. I'll just go ahead and accept it. Now let me go ahead and fill it up to fit the screen by clicking this icon here. I chose this image today because it doesn't have a sky background, and normally I'll select the sky and then invert it and then we'll grab the foreground out of that. But I'm going to show you how we can work with this image without a sky. Instead of selecting a sky, we can come here and click on this icon and we can select the subject. Now it looks like it did a pretty good job. So let me go ahead and zoom in and let's just take a look here. And it looks like Photoshop did a really good job of selecting the subject, but we need to clean it up a little bit. Let's go over to the trusty TK8 CX or combo panel, whichever one you're using. They're both the same, they just look different. Let's go and click on S&M for selected mask, and that'll bring up the selected mask dialog here. Now I'm using a red overlay, but you have different choices that you can use, but let's just use the red overlay. Now I'm going to be using the second tool down, which is the refine edge brush tool, and we're going to refine the edges. I'm just going to paint right here, and it usually does a pretty good job. It doesn't actually have to be perfect. I think that looks pretty good. Let me come down on the edge here and see what it gets. It missed a little spot in there, so I'm going to hold my option key down and just paint in here. Yeah, and that looks pretty good. Now it's missed the spot right in here. If I paint over this, you can see it kind of gets a little bit of it in there, but go to the next tool down, and what we're going to do is just paint. It's just a regular old brush, and you can adjust the feathering on the edge. Let's make it like, I don't know, maybe around like a 40-50% feathering, and I'll just paint down here, just like so. All right, and I think that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to go back to the refine edge tool and just paint right here and just see. Okay, and I think that's, for all intents and purposes, going to be fine. I'm going to output this to a selection, so I'm just going to click OK. And I think that's going to be good. Let's go ahead and fit this back to screen by clicking this icon here. Now that I look at this, I'm looking at my selection. I missed a piece right in here, I believe. Let me zoom in here one more time just to see. Yeah, that's some background there. So let's go ahead and click on S&M one more time, and I'm going to use that refine edge tool and just paint right here and see if that cleans it up. Yeah, it does a pretty good job. It takes a little away here. Let's go to that other brush, and this is just a regular brush. Remember, it'll just paint things back in. And if you hold your option key down, you can remove things like here. Let me go ahead and just do this. It is select and mask, and it's supposed to do a really good job. I'm going to go back to the refine edge and right there, make my brush a little smaller. But is it perfect? By no means is it perfect. I'm using the wrong tool. I wanted the refine edge. I'm going to hit Command or Control Z to go backwards, make my brush smaller. See, I'm making mistakes, and I'm leaving my mistakes in for you. There, that looks better. I'm going to take that, and now let's click OK. And now I'm happy with that. I think that's going to be better. Let me go ahead and fit it to screen again. Now I made this selection. What the heck am I going to do with it? Well, if you're thinking, Dave, save it as a channel, you are right. So let's come over here to the TK8 panel and click this icon, and we can save it. Let's just call it subject and click OK. So that's saved in the channel. The next thing I want to do, which is a little different, is I'm going to use the object selection tool. And I know I've used that before, but let's click on the object selection tool. I'm going to separate out this grass area here. Okay, so I'm just going to go outside of the canvas here and just drag. I'm using the rectangle tool and go like this and see how nice it selects it. It's not perfect. We're going to go back into select and mask and refine that. But follow me closely because I'm doing things a little different today. So let's go to S&M and let's refine this area right in here. I'm going to use this same refine edge brush tool and just paint along the edge here. This doesn't have to be perfect, but just paint right along here like so. And I think that's going to be good. And then we're just going to output it as a selection and click OK. And now we have that selection. And if we want to, we can examine this mask. So we can come up and click on this edit selection icon. We used this last week and we could take a look at the mask. But what I want to show you here is we have some of the animal's legs here, and there's some areas out here that selected mask didn't do such a great job on. But we have some great tools in here. And what I mean by that is we have a dodge and a burn tool, and I'm going to utilize those, and I'll show you how. Let's click on the burn tool first. And I'm just going to take the default settings. It's set for shadows and 50% exposure. And when I paint over here, look how it cleans my mask up. Isn't that cool? I can come in here and clean this up here. I can get rid of these legs. And we have a brush tool in here as well that we can use if it misses some of the areas, little stubborn areas. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but look how I can clean things up. So we have select and mask, but we also have these great tools inside of the TK8 multi-mask plugin for Photoshop. Now this area right here is part of that animal's legs. I don't know what the name of that animal is, but if you do, let me know in the comment section below. Grab a brush tool, black brush tool, and I'm just going to paint that off just like so. Isn't that cool? And I can clean that up. Now I can save the mask right here, but before I do, there's some areas down here. Let's move over to a dodge tool. We have a burn tool, but we also have a dodge tool that we can come in here and dodge things a little bit. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but let's just clean it up a tiny little bit, just like that. Now let's go ahead and save it. We can come right here and save this. So click on save, and I'm going to call this, let's call this grass, and click OK. So now we have a grass channel saved as well. And we can get out of here at this point. And so far I have a subject. Let me just change the size here a little bit so you can see. So I have subject and I have grass. And I have a selection made right now. I can deselect the selection if I want to. Now remember, this is masking success. So what I want to do is combine this grass with the animal. And the reason I want to do that is because then I'm going to invert it and get the background. But follow me closely here. Here's what we're going to do. Come up to My Channels, click on the subject, click on the mask calculator, click plus, and then X out of here, come back to My Channels, and now click on grass and click equals. And now we have the animal and the foreground grass together. So now what I want to do is, and it missed a little spot right here, but look, I can grab this little black, or not the black brush, let's say the little white brush. Okay, make my brush a little bit smaller, and let's just paint this. Let's just paint this right here. And that is good enough. And little area here it missed, fine, it's going to be perfect. I mean, right down here, you might say, it missed this little spot, but I can clean this if I want to. Honestly, it would not make a difference if you did or if you didn't. Okay, so now what we want to do is invert this. Now right here we have an invert, so let's click this. And now we've inverted it, but check this out. We now have just the background selected. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So what we want to do next is let's save it. So we have save right here. So let's click on save, and let's call this background. And now we have the background saved out, and we'll click OK. So now it's added to our list right here. And now let's use it to work on the background. So let's output it. Let's output it to a color grading tool. I love the color grading tool. So click on the color grading tool, and that mask is applied to the color grading tool. I'm going to click on the midtone, which is the one I generally start with. And I want to darken this background. So I'm going to take this lumen slider and start to darken it up a bit. Isn't that cool? And it's just selecting the background. Pretty cool stuff. Now I think that background's a little too blue, so I'm going to take this block and slide it up and warm up that background just a tiny wee bit. I just like that. I want to get rid of some of that coolness. I think I want this little cloudy area behind the animal to be a little lighter, so let's click on highlights and let's just lighten that up a little wee bit. Not much, but just a tiny wee bit. I think like that. Let's take a look. Here's the before and here is the after. Maybe I'll lighten it just a smidge more. You know, decisions, that's too light right there. I think that's good. The background's done. Now let's take a look at the foreground grasses. Now there's a problem here because we have some of these twigs in here which are not grass, and I want to make this grass green, but let me show you how I do this. First off, we're going to simply X out of the color grading tool. Let's come back to my channels. We already have a grass channel saved, so let's click on grass, and there's our grass. Let's output it to a color grading tool. And let's click on midtones and let's make that grass a lot greener. Make it a lot greener, and do we want to lighten it up any? Maybe a little bit, maybe more on the green side, something like that. Let's work on the shadows in the grass. So let's click on the shadow block and let's just darken up those shadows by moving the slider to the left a little bit, just like so. I'm going to over exaggerate this. It's probably a little bit too green, but here's the before and here's the after. Now let me zoom in on this, on these twigs here. See, they are green. Now that's going to be a little bit of a problem. We got to take care of that. Now let me show you how we'll do it. Now pay close attention to me. This is a new technique you're going to learn. You may want to go back and watch this again, but follow me close. The first thing you want to do is shut off this color grading layer, because we want to grab this stick here, and I'm going to show you how we do it, but we need to shut the color grading layer off first. Before I shut the layer off, you'll notice that stick is green, right? But we want to use the color from the stick to help make our selection. So that's why I shut that color grading layer off. We're going to use something a little different we've never used before. Let's X out of this color grading tool and let's grab this icon right here. This lets us create our own mask. We're going to click this right here, and basically we get this black and white adjustment layer here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the greens and drag this to the left to darken up any greens that are in here, and also yellows. There's not a whole lot in the green. But then we're going to take cyans and drag this a lot of the way over to the right, because there's a lot of cyan and blue in this stick, and I'm going to take the blue as well. And you see how that's all lightening up in there? And that's really good. Now, don't worry about the rest of the image. We're only worried about this stick here, okay? We're going to refine it a little bit more, and what we're going to do next is grab this levels adjustment. So click on the levels adjustment, and what we want to do is take the highlight slider and move this to the left. See how that stick's getting lighter? And now let's click on the midtone slider and drag it to the right, and see how everything else is getting dark around the stick. Pretty cool, right? Now I can take this highlight and drag it over a little bit more, make it a little bit lighter. That's pretty good. We're not done yet, but follow me closely. Next off, what we want to do is output this as a selection. So see this icon right here? Click this, and we output this as a selection. Now, you don't see the marching ants because they're hidden. And if I click this icon right here, you can see there's my selection, okay? They're hidden so we don't get distracted with the marching ants. But we do have a selection, and you also notice we have a selection indicator here. These dashed lines, and also the color outline around the CX panel. These indicators confirm, yes, we do have a selection. Now we're going to further refine that selection. Remember, we're trying to get rid of the green on the stick that was added from the color grading tool. We don't see it now, but I'll show it to you here in a second. What we want to do is click on this icon so we can edit our selection. And now we're going to use tools in here like the dodge and burn tools to refine a little bit. So let's start out with the burn tool, and let's just paint around the stick here and just clean it up. We don't have to worry about other areas here, because you'll see how I'm going to fix this in a little bit. And it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. So like this grass, I want to get rid of it. I don't want it. I want to keep this all green up in here, in this area right in here. This is going to be a little stubborn, so I'll show you how I'll fix that, but I'm just cleaning around my stick a little bit. This is a rock over here, by the way. Here's some stuff over in here. And then if we want to, we can get the dodge tool and paint over the stick and dodge up some areas of the stick and even out here a little bit. Okay, so we can dodge that up a little bit. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, because we do have some green moss on sticks and things like that at times, so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. But let's get a brush tool like a black brush, and let me just make my brush a little larger, and I'm just going to paint off some of this area in here, like this. And I think we're going to be pretty darn good. Okay, but you get the idea. You can spend all day in here and play around if you want to, but you really don't need to. But that's all we need to do at this point. Now the next step, and it's very critical, we want to load this as a selection. So click this right here. Now you want to mouse click on the mask, because remember, we'll be working on the layer mask. So click on the mask and let's turn that layer back on. And now we see we have green here, okay? So we have a selection. We're going to be painting with, what color of paint do you think we're going to paint with? If you're thinking black, you're correct. So let's get a black brush. Let's come up to the CX panel and click on this black brush icon here. And when I paint on this stick, we'll be painting actually on the mask itself with the black paint, and we'll be taking the green off. I'm going to use 100% opacity and check it out. I can just simply paint on this mask and reveal the stick's natural color back through. Now remember, I'm painting through a selection. That is very important. We're not painting on the image pixels. And now if there's some areas that you want to fix, like right here I didn't get, and this rock over here, if you want to fix those little areas, not a problem. All you need to do is deselect your selection by clicking right here. And then with black paint, and I'm just going to use 100% opacity, make my brush smaller. I'm going to get a nice soft edge on this brush. And I can come in here and paint if I want to. Little areas that I missed, like right in here. No, I mean, not a big deal. It depends how accurate you want to be, and I can just get in here and fix that right there. But the key to success here was painting through that selection on that stick. And then I just used a regular brush without the selection in, just touched up a couple little spots that it missed. Let me go ahead and get rid of this properties panel. Let's go ahead and fit this to screen. Now let's take a look at the overall before and after. Here was the before. And here is the after. We're almost done. A couple more things. I got to do a little bit of work on the animal, and that's next. Now remember, our theme is masking success. We're setting ourselves up for masking success. Let's come up to My Channels and let's click on Subject. We have a subject. Let's output it to a color grading tool there. And all I want to do is click on the midtone slider, and I just want to lighten up the animal just a little wee tiny bit. And next, what I want to do is get a hue saturation layer. I'm just going to click on the hue saturation layer right here. I'm going to clip it to the animal color grading layer by clicking this icon right here. And now I'm just going to take that saturation, and when I adjust it, you'll notice I'm only adjusting the color on the animal. Isn't that cool? And that's the clipping layer letting us do that. So let's just give him a little bit more saturation. And I think that looks good. I have one more thing to do, and that's an action. Let's click on the TK actions. Let's click on soft pop because it's really good for fur and animals. So let's click on soft pop. And let's take a look here. Now just look at the animal. Here is the before, and here is the after. But let's clip it to the layer below it by clicking on the clipping icon, which is right here. And now you'll notice it is only on the animal. See that? Before, there's before, and here's after. It just brings out a little bit of texture in the fur. And I may want to go back to the hue saturation because it added a little extra saturation as well. And I just may ease back on the saturation a little bit. Now remember, everything is non-destructive. So right there. So here's our overall before. And here's our after. Well, there it is. This was Masking Success Part 2. I hope you learned a lot today. We used some different techniques today, and we used some old techniques as well. But I hope this is adding to your arsenal of ways of using the TK8 multi-mask panel for Photoshop. If you enjoyed the tutorial today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.